Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ, where it was rocking with the best college football environment in America. Late last night, I was in the building for it. Nothing compares. Nothing compares to when Neyland Stadium and the Coliseum itself is rocking on a fall Saturday night. Dark mode activated. Dad came up for the game, which was a lot of fun. Glad we were able to do that. Just an all-around great college football Saturday, and to talk all about it, my good friend, the University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It's good to be back with you here. Talking ball, following up week 5. I have a question. Was your dad wearing any orange on Saturday?
It's funny you bring this up. First thing I said to my father, love my dad. First thing I said, he's not a stylish man. He's not one for a lot of wardrobe in his older years here. So he comes into the house. He comes to the game in the afternoon. We were going to go get some food and watch the Georgia game and the end of Kentucky, Florida out and hang out before we made our way to campus. And the man shows up in like this blue plaid t-shirt, Magellan t-shirt, over this like navy blue shirt and the oldest Tennessee hat, orange Tennessee hat I've ever seen. I've never seen him with it. And he just I'm like, I bought him, or he was out. I don't know if I bought it for him or whatever. We were at a Tennessee South Carolina game 2 years ago. It was a really nice like Vol Traditions hat. He like never wears it. And this was like the prime opportunity. So he found it. He said he found it somewhere. And so he had this. And oh man, like when I say my dad he was the Where's Waldo at Neyland Stadium on Saturday, because if you were looking for somebody not in black or orange on Saturday night, you'll find my dad. He was, and then this is all, it's just so funny you asked me this, because the next, like today, I was talking to my mom with my wife today, and she reveals that he drove home in like an orange polo. He like walked in the door of my like, just what? It was the most dad situation this weekend I've ever seen in terms of wardrobe.
I respect it. He was like, I don't want to support what Tennessee's got going on up here. Yeah, I feel like since they're rocking black, I think he could have just gotten away with like a black little subtle like Georgia shirt, that was black. But he's like, I'm here for Tennessee, but I'm repping my colors. But I remember when I went to a Florida game with my buddy several years ago, like game day was at Florida, South Carolina that year. It was like 2012. And I had like the Todd Gurley at the time jersey on and everything. And then it's like these dudes were like cool in us park in front of their place. So I was like, okay, I don't want to be that guy. I had a sports bar that I worked at. I had just a blue shirt, the Derby. And so I rocked the blue shirt. It's like I was a Florida fan like for the day. And that day we needed Florida to beat South Carolina, because that was the year South Carolina beat Georgia of Clowney and everything. But yeah, so I feel like when in Rome, like if I'm your pops, I would have at least had the black going. So at least I was part of the festivities.
I mean, he has the Tennessee stuff. It's like he likes both, and obviously, I mean, he has a Tennessee dad sticker on the back of his car. He had the black truck. He has a nice black truck that matched everything. It was a really nice, like when I say that everything was great, had a great time with my dad. We had this crazy lady behind us who thankfully stopped yelling in our ear, but she was yelling over and over again, get him, and I'm talking like it just something out of a Billy Madison movie. It was ridiculous in my ear, and thankfully that ended, because I turned around a couple times just like I was going deaf. It was enough. But no, the seats were great. It was a lot of fun, man. Like this was due to different circumstances, I was not able to get into Neyland Stadium before last night this year, and that was welcomed. And Tennessee also hasn't really, this is the first big Tennessee home game this year, because you had Virginia at a neutral site in Nashville, and you had Austin Peay and UTSA to this point. So really not a whole lot of just raucous environment for Neyland Stadium and Knoxville as a whole up until this point. And like Spencer Rattler said, this was our Super Bowl, so we had to go all out to make sure that we won the title, and that we did on Saturday night, Matt Green.
Well, we trying to get into it. You want to talk about Tennessee, lead the show? Is this too much Tennessee talk for one period, or are we just going to get it all out of the way right now?
Well, I'm a gentleman, Matt Green, so we can start with your team. Your team played first. My dad and I actually sat outside the student union and watched the whole second half of Georgia Auburn before we went into to the Coliseum to see the Vols and Gamecocks do battle under the lights on Saturday. But it was a tale of two halves, which we're now seeing a lot for the Georgia Bulldogs. I think is my biggest takeaway is just you got to wait till the second half, whether it's Auburn, South Carolina. It's just going to be really, really hard to beat the Dogs over 4 full quarters unless, as the broadcast points out, every time the Dogs are in a dogfight, pardon the pun, is like the only people to beat Kirby really are the Heisman-type quarterbacks, the C.J. Strouds, the Bryce Youngs. You got to have that kind of quarterback to sustain offensive excellence over 4 quarters. And Peyton Thorne had that 61-yard touchdown run, or 61-yard play, and Auburn was able to run the ball pretty well in the first half and do some stuff, but it wasn't 4 quarters worth. It was the second half struggled. A lot of Robbie Ashford as the game went on, which we saw how that went a year ago. Just kind of very one-dimensional that I just don't think you can beat this iteration of Kirby's Bulldogs with, is just that kind of one-dimensional run-first type of offense. I think you keep running into a wall in that way, and just makes it that much harder. That was my strong takeaway from what I saw against Georgia and Auburn. But this is your team. You've got a better field, Matt Green. What did you see against the Auburn
Normally, I
Tigers?
would agree with you. And like they showed the last 4 quarterbacks to beat Georgia dated back to 2020. And it was Mac Jones, going all the way back to Joe Burrow, Kyle Trask, Bryce Young. Like, not only were all those guys Heisman finalists, or a couple won the Heisman, but like all of them had like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in those games too. And yeah, not even including CJ Stroud, who had a similar performance. Like, Peyton Thorne didn't do anything in the passing game. Like, so the fact that they were just running the ball with no real threat of the pass game, it's like that was probably what worried you the most. Like, I don't know how many other teams on Georgia's schedule kind of run this type of offense. Maybe they'll do something like it if it gives Georgia so many problems. But I feel like it seemed like at one point Auburn made the decision, and we were kind of sitting at home like, if they're not going to pass, Robbie Ashford is way better for this system. And he was in for a drive or so, but I guess Peyton Thorne gives you the threat of the pass, but they didn't really do anything in the passing game. So for them to just continue to have these little runs and get to the outside, or Thorne just scramble, like, I've never seen Peyton Thorne. Granted, I haven't watched all of Peyton Thorne's games, right? But I've never seen Peyton Thorne have that sort of rushing production. So I think that was definitely frustrating as a Georgia fan. But I think when we talk about Georgia, it's like we do have to acknowledge that we're just talking about them at a different standard, right? It's like, if we go back to 2021, like, I remember a certain quarterback whose Heisman moment was beating a 6-6 Auburn team in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Like, and that was a game that what they score 14 points in regulation, and Bryce Young, is a gutty win and all that. Like, obviously I'm not comparing Carson Beck to Bryce Young, but this is Carson Beck's first road start of his career. Like, we all know about Jordan-Hare Stadium. And also, when you get somebody, I think is very important too. Like, this early in the season, everyone's still got their hopes and dreams of what their season could be. And the crowd is pumped. The players are pumped. Like, Auburn could win the SEC West at this point, right? Going into this Georgia game with 1 loss on the season. So Jordan-Hare Stadium is one of the loudest environments in college football. And I think for Georgia to go on the road, it wasn't pretty by any means. And if you're talking about where we rank Georgia as among the best teams in college football, then yeah, there's some concerns. But I think this was one of the 2 biggest tests, I think, when we looked at Georgia's schedule preseason. It's Hugh Freeze. It's all at Auburn on the road. Like, being Carson Beck's first road start, like, this was a tricky positioned game when you've played a bunch of cupcakes. This is the first like real opponent. No disrespect to South Carolina. Like, obviously it's a good, a legitimate opponent, but it was at home. This is definitely the first real challenge. And you saw Georgia was, got off to another slow start, but they were still able to get it done on the road. I think you still have to call it a good win, right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. It seems like a lot of the takeaways from Georgia folks and analysts and what have you looked at this as like a championship just flex from Georgia, that this was a huge win for them, that a lot of teams probably would have gone down playing the way they did for 3 quarters, but that this says a lot about Georgia's resolve and the makeup of this team and why fans should still not panic about just kind of being in some close counters with South Carolina and Auburn. Do you share that sentiment, or do you think it's a little overblown that Georgia was able to kind of withstand some heavy blows from Auburn in the first half and just be able to get on the other side of that and lock things down, find Brock Bowers over and over again, the defense tightening up? Was that your takeaway, or did you come away, it's good to get away from a win, an SEC win is an SEC win, but let's not overthink Georgia in this regard and give them too much credit for surviving against an Auburn team that still might go 7-5, 6-6, depending on how the rest of the season goes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that stuff can kind of be overblown, and if Georgia does win the national championship, like, yeah, in retrospect, you can go back and be like, that was a character building win, or championship teams win those games or something. Like, yeah, maybe there's an element to that when you're Georgia now, you're number 1 team in the country every week. It's the biggest game of the season for anyone that's hosting the number 1 team in the country, right? So you're going to get everybody's best shot. Auburn's obviously a huge rivalry to begin with. So like these teams have a lot of familiarity. Hugh Freeze is a really good offensive mind. Like we just know that, he's going to have some wrinkles that teams aren't ready for. But I mean, I think the way the game played out, I think it feels like it was like correctable things like that Kent State game a year ago, not comparing Auburn to Kent State, but they had just a couple of just uncharacteristic things happen, like losing outside containment and guys just breaking long runs. Like, I feel like that's what you saw a lot in the first half, Georgia not being able to set the edge. And so it felt like in the second half, like Javon Bullard, I think in the running game, like I feel like he made a huge difference just coming up from the safety position. Like that dude just has a nose for the ball. But I mean, this team it's not 2021 or 2022. Like Trayvon Walker and Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Devontae Wyatt aren't on this team. So I think Georgia's still really good, but I think there is, a level that maybe they're not quite as elite as we thought going into the season, but that doesn't mean they're not still the number 1 team in the country. It's like we've seen Florida State beat Boston College by 2 on the road. Like the Clemson game. Like, I mean, if Clemson had a competent kicker, Clemson beats Florida State last week. So it's I think if you're talking about just pressing the panic button, it's too early. Like as a Georgia fan, if that's not a good Auburn team, then obviously you want to beat them by more than 1 touchdown. But I think my biggest takeaway, to be honest, was that Georgia's definitely got a quarterback. Like I think Carson Beck proved on Saturday, like, because that interception, I don't really put that on Beck. Like that's just a great defensive play. Like the way he just came over the top of the receiver. Also, like Auburn's 2 touchdown drives in this game were both off of turnovers with a short field. So as much as they were giving up in the running game, and it was the first 200-yard rushing game Georgia's allowed since 2018 at LSU. So they were able to overcome some adversity and win a game like this. I think it does say a lot, and mainly because this is what we talked about with Georgia. Like they might not be as good as last year, but their schedule, who's going to expose it? Like that's what it comes down to. It's a favorable schedule. But when I saw Carson Beck on Saturday, I felt like that, like 15 to 25 yard, like those intermediate throws, I think he is so much better than Stetson Bennett. I think that's where you can see like the difference in like the arm talent between Carson Beck and Stetson Bennett. Like he's missed a couple deep shots. Like he missed one last week against what was that? Was that UAB or South Carolina? He missed a wide open guy, but missing an Oscar Delp, like could have been like a 60-yard touchdown early in this game. But I think Carson Beck really, to me, showed that like as far as the contenders go, like I'll put Caleb Williams and Quinn Ewers above Carson Beck, but I don't think anyone else has a distinguishable advantage at quarterback over what Georgia's got with Carson Beck. And at the end of the day, they have Brock Bowers, and he might be the best player in college football. Like this guy just snagging shit with one hand. Like they were absolutely feeding this man. And it may have taken a little bit long for them to start feeding him, but I think when you have that guy, and I think with Georgia's weapons, the offensive line is probably the biggest concern from the first 5 weeks, is that they're just not necessarily dominating teams on the ground like you kind of expected them to. And they have the Amarius Mims injury that's definitely a factor in that, but I think even before that, it's not necessarily the dominant O-line play you thought you were going to get. But I think, if these few running backs can stay healthy, and I'm honestly, I think it's at this point, it's Dejon Edwards and Dylan Bell really are like the only two running backs that really look like they give you anything right now. Like, I don't know if Kendall Milton is still not healthy or what, but at this point, you just can't really count on him being healthy. So as long as they don't get, an injury to the running back, because that position is lacking a lot of depth, I think Georgia still has enough firepower to beat every team that's left on their schedule.
We should also, if we're going to talk Georgia Auburn, the fact that we haven't mentioned Brock Bowers and the one-handed catches that he pulled off in this game, just really putting the team on his back. That helps a young quarterback or a quarterback on the road. Is like, don't overthink some of this stuff, where it's like, hey, this is your first road test, raucous environment at Jordan-Hare. Just go find Brock Bowers. Find 19, put it within reach. And I mean, he had some weird drops too. When Georgia was driving near the goal line, where it's like, oh, Brock usually catches those, where they had to settle for a field goal. I forgot what drive it was.
He is one of those. It's like I don't know, like an Andrew Jones error or something. Mm-hmm. You're like, I mean, that wasn't an error, but he just makes all the great plays I just expect him to make. But yeah, there was the one right there at the goal line. I think if you're talking about that, like that, I think the defensive back actually knocked it down. But the play right before that, it was like a back shoulder throw, right? Yeah, it's like it would have been a great catch, but it's like Bowers like typically catches everything thrown to him.
And he was great. Edwards was great. But on the defensive side of things, have you seen enough where you think teams are going to be able to run the football? Good teams are going to be able to run the football on this Georgia run. You mentioned Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and some of those guys are just not on this defense anymore. I think Chaz Chambliss had a really good game from what I saw too in this one. But Malachi Stark's obviously all over the place. To you, is there more opportunity for Tennessee, who has a three-headed monster at running back? And just to heads up, they're going to try to run on Georgia. Like, that is what they want to do. They ran all over. They're taking the ball out of Joe Milton's hands, and they are just going to bet on running it down your throat and creating havoc with Dylan Sampson and Jalen Wright. But this won't be the last team to try and do this. I mean, Missouri, Brady Cook's cooking a little bit. Ray Davis, obviously, we'll get to in his big day for Kentucky. With some big backs and teams that really want to run the football, did you see enough that Auburn kind of worries you about what teams are going to be able to do on the ground against Georgia that they have not been able to do in the last couple of years?
I mean, I think it's definitely a concern because teams just never run on Georgia. So the fact that a team that really had no threat of the pass was able to run on Georgia, I mean, I think that's what you have to be concerned about. But I also think there's something about Auburn's running game that is also just kind of a different look that I'm not sure like someone like Kentucky can replicate, and also I really do think the home field aspect of it too is just, it's a game changer. Like you saw what Florida was when Tennessee was at home, like in that big game, in their atmosphere like that, they almost ran the ball at will. Like on the road, the other two games they've had, big games they've had on the road, they're a completely different team. So I think when teams just get that home crowd behind them, it's like you're able to get to a level that you're not normally at. And so I think, I don't know, I don't want to make the whole excuse, like I'm making excuses for Georgia because of Jordan-Hare Stadium, like it's some sort of superpower, but I think Jordan-Hare Stadium is like just a tough place to play. So you got to be concerned with how they were doing it, because Joe Milton. He might not be as advertised so far through this season, but he's a hell of a lot better than Peyton Thorne is. So there's other teams that do want to run the ball that might actually have a competent passing game, and that might be something that Georgia has to worry about. But I do think the secondary is probably the strong point of this defense so far through this season. But I think Jamon Dumas-Johnson is a guy who's gotten a lot of criticism so far. Just, I don't know, looks a step slow or something, because he's had a couple rough games, and I think that's kind of where some of Georgia's problems lie. It's just they're not tackling just the sure tackling that we're used to seeing from Georgia. You're not necessarily seeing that. It's just not as crisp, I think, through the first 5 games.
All right. Well, speaking of things that aren't crisp through the first 5 games, Matt Green, the Tennessee Volunteers, they get another win to move to 4-1 on the season. This was, like I said, I've been to a lot of games inside Neyland Stadium, and this was, I think, the loudest I've ever heard it, and it was rocking from the beginning. Obviously, dark mode gets a lot of folks riled up. This was, I mean, there were so many things, Matt Green, to touch on here, because coming in, I thought Tennessee would have to score a lot. I was worried about the defense, worried about the lulls, where Tennessee is known to have some really tough quarters where they really just, like the third quarter last week against UTSA, where they just gave up all kinds of yards and just kind of slept walk. The offense went into a rut, and the game got away from him for a quarter. Against Florida scores 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. Tennessee just can't get off the field. They struggle offensively, throw a bad pick. Like, you've seen it for a different quarter in bigger competition this year. And like the Virginia game turned out to mean nothing. I mean, Virginia's now 0-5. So that really is, there's nothing to glean from that one in the opener. And I think this was one of those games that, I mean, I said before that this was a must-win for both programs, because I don't know if you've looked at South Carolina's schedule the rest of the way, Matt Green, but the march to 6 wins is, I don't think, going to happen. I think it requires a lot of help and some teams really falling apart down the stretch. I think you're looking at 5 and 7, and you see the comparisons to Muschamp and Beamer to this point in their South Carolina tenures. They're almost identical. So I think there's real questions about that program and where they're going after this kind of game.
How many retweets did Muschamp get, though?
That is true.
So these are the things that are important.
Yeah, I won't say anything on that. But Matt Green. So this game really came down to the trenches, I think, more than anything. I don't know how much of this game you watched on Saturday night, but
oh yeah,
James Pierce, who I predicted as the breakout candidate before the year, he's an absolute dude. True sophomore, 4-star out of North Carolina. He came on the scene, number 27 for the good folks who are not diehard Tennessee fans and not familiar with James Pierce. You will be as the season goes on. 2 sacks in this one. He was the one who got to Spencer Rattler, where Spencer Rattler had to airmail a pass over the South Carolina wide receiver's head. Kamal Hadden just happened to be in the right place at the right time, takes it back to the house for 6. Right before the half, it was a huge swing. It was the game, really, because
then felt like it was the game right there.
Well, because you go down 24-10 at the half, and Tennessee gets the ball back. So that was the other part of it. You got aggressive right before the end of the half, and you're not even getting the ball back to start the second half. So then Tennessee goes up 3 touchdowns, and really the game was really out of reach, because
and that's not the first time Beamer has made some questionable like halftime type decisions like that. I remember the 2021 Georgia game, like passing out of his own end zone, then got a safety, and then Georgia was able to get more points before the half. It was like, I feel like Beamer, he's done some questionable strategic things before the half.
Yeah, and I think it was tough. I didn't really understand the game plan. They really put Spencer Rattler in a bad way. I just don't know how he gets through this whole season. He got destroyed in this one, whether it was Tyler Barron, James Pierce, Jonathan Josephs, Omar Norman-Lott. Tennessee's front 4 just destroyed the freshman tackles and freshman offensive linemen for South Carolina in this one, and just dominated the trenches. Spencer Rattler was, for lack of a better term, rattled in the second half when I texted you with some of the officiating, where Spencer Rattler steps out of bounds, the back of the end zone where we were, and gets away from it. And the play before, the running back.
You thought? I thought he got that off. Like, I feel like if that was a basketball, he wouldn't have gotten called for the travel. Like, I
Well,
think
even if that, he was
he
inside the
just barely
pocket
got it off.
and it was intentional grounding. Like if that's the case, then you throw it. There was a flag somewhere, and then it was just clear that they were in tough water. You had the catch of the year that won't be beat. I'm gonna go ahead and guess with Squirrel even saying after he never saw the ball, it just hits him in the leg in the corner of the 1 yard line from Joe. It was the only deep ball you saw from Tennessee all game long. The worst part of the game was Brew McCoy had a nasty injury that we saw immediately, and it got ugly quick. And just seeing all the Vol reactions was just terrible.
Marcus Lattimore vibes, I feel like.
And I mean, it was revealed today he had successful surgery, and he, hopefully on the mend, and that he'll be able to get back to full strength. Because Brew was awesome, and Caleb Blood ended up fielding a lot of his snaps the rest of the way. But Tennessee's gonna have a rotation now because Dante Thornton was out with a hammy issue, and we're going to see how that wide receiver room shakes out because they're beat up right now by and large. So we'll see. But this was also the return of Cooper Mace, Matt Green, and Cooper at center made a gigantic difference because Tennessee's front only gave up 1 sack, and it was a Joe Milton sack in this one where he held the ball too long. That wasn't on the offensive line. Mincy being back at right tackle and started and played every snap there. John Campbell at left tackle was great. Spraggs at right guard was great, and they dominated. Like that was the healthiest Tennessee's offensive line has been all year long, and you see a different kind of Tennessee team when they're healthy at that front. And I think getting Cooper back cannot be understated how important that was to Tennessee establishing themselves and getting a dub against South Carolina last night. And then the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to you to get your perspective, Matt Green, was Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson are just a lethal 1-2 punch. 7.7 yards per carry. Jalen Wright obviously had the big touchdown early. And Dylan Sampson's just twitchy. He's really hard to bring down. He's really, really tough to handle in space. And Tennessee's going to run the ball down your throat. Like that is what's happening. For the folks who are waiting for Tennessee to start opening up the playbook to what it was the last 2 years with Hendon Hooker, it's just not coming. That's not the game plan. There's no trust to play that way with Joe, and there wasn't a lot of intermediate stuff. They're not taking the deep shots. And why would you? When you're able to run the way Tennessee has to this point, you have the kind of backs that Tennessee does right now. It's just the point of all of this is to win games. If it's not flashy, yeah, it's not as fun. But Joe had 2 picks in this one. He was not good. By and large, but he's also doing just enough to win. Like he's not killing you, he's not costing the game. And when you look around the SEC, most teams are, or most fan bases aren't happy really with the way their quarterbacks are playing. So you're kind of in that similar boat, but the difference is you're 4-1. You have a lot to be positive about, and it's a big program win. And now you get a bye to get healthy in 2 weeks to prepare for a very good A&M team coming to town after this.
Yeah, this is a solid time for a bye. I can't really add much to what you were saying. I thought I was impressed because I felt like with how Tennessee started, it felt like, oh, this thing could like potentially turn into a rout, dark mode, and just the energy in the stadium. And it felt like South Carolina did a good job of kind of like going blows for blow like early on. But it felt like it was different after that pick six going into the half. Like next time they take the field, like they're down 3 touchdowns. Next time the offense is on the field, they're down 3 touchdowns. So it's like that just totally broke the game open. But yeah, I mean, Joe Milton obviously threw a couple picks. Like there's still room for improvement for him. But like you've said before, like this team is based on running the football, and if they're able to consistently run the ball, Joe Milton is dangerous enough to where like this offense is going to be dangerous against anybody. So it was obviously a big win for Tennessee. Had to get back on track. So that's all I got.
All right, where are we going next, Matt Green?
Oh, where are we going next? You want to stay in the SEC? Let's stay in the SEC. Kentucky absolutely dominated Florida. Ray Davis, man. I was getting Jacquizz Rodgers vibes from this guy. I don't think he's that small, but he was just like a little guy that just carrying the load like between the tackles. It was just ridiculous the way this man was literally getting like 18 yards every time he touched the ball. Like I think going into half, he was literally averaging 18 yards a carry. First 2 plays of the second half, it's like 15-yard carry, 30-yard carry. It's like if they wanted to, this man could have set the NCAA rushing record on Saturday. Like, you think he had 250 at the half or something like that? Yeah, end up with 280 and 4 touchdowns. Like, I felt very vindicated on my opinion of the Florida Gators. Like, even though like I predicted them to beat Tennessee, I never thought they were better than Tennessee. I never really thought they were a good team. And I think once you go on the road, so this is the green line stat of the week. Florida Gators have now lost 9 of their last 10 road games. And that's 5 of their last 6 under Billy Napier. So it is a whole nother ball game when you go on the road versus playing at home in college football. And I think there's no better example of that than Florida. This is not a very good team. And when you're not a very good team, I don't think you travel well.
No, and look, I think it's so weird to see how they play on the road, like you said, because look, when you look at it, Montrell Johnson, 10 carries, 42 yards, Trevor Etienne, 11 carries, 29 yards, and you look at Graham Mertz's overall stats, 25 at 30, 244, 8.1 yards per attempt. If you look at it, it's like they're pretty decent, but it's not scary. They don't really have the receivers right now who can separate anybody, can really scare you. Ricky Pearsall can have some crazy catches like he did a week ago, but there's just not a lot of juice. And they don't get up for these road games. Like, the offensive line got just beat up by Kentucky's defense and Kentucky's defensive line, and they played fantastic, going up 23-7 at the half. And it was a rough look, but Ray Davis, obviously 26 carries, 280, 10.8 yards per attempt, 3 TDs. He had that long 75-yard run. Like, he was electric, and Ray Davis is a really good player and has been great all year long. But my question here is still, Devin Leary at home, 9-19, 69 yards, 3.6 yards per attempt. He hasn't been good. And when you look at where he was graded at this week in QBR, the only 3 quarterbacks who are worse in the SEC this week, and even in a win for Leary, Spencer Rattler, who had a rough night at Knoxville, KJ Jefferson, who we'll get to, and Will Rogers, who we'll also get to, Matt Green. Devin Leary's been bad so far at Kentucky. And as much Tennessee fans complain about Joe Milton, I mean, Devin Leary has not shown me anything that leads me to believe that this Kentucky team is going to be able to handle things when they can't rely on Ray Davis to carry them to victory. And I mean, it was a great day at home and all that, but their bigger competition's on the way. It's a big win for Kentucky. They are now quietly starting to dominate this rivalry in the last 4 years, which makes you concerned if you're a Florida fan about where the program's going, because you can't just keep losing to Kentucky.
They've won 4 of the last 6 now after losing 31 in a row.
And 6 of those 9 losses are by 1 score. And I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do or what to make of Florida, other than I just think they're like a 5-7, 6-6 team. I think them and South Carolina are in similar boats where you're just like, I don't know, man. We're nearing some interesting times for these two situations, and you're kind of falling behind a little bit. You're seeing Mizzou have a great start to the year, and I don't know. I think if I'm a Florida fan, I'm very nervous about how the rest of the season is going to ultimately unfold. You still got some huge conference games. You haven't played Georgia yet. You still got to play Florida State. You still got to play Mizzou. I think this was one you needed. You still have to play South Carolina. Like, there's still a lot of big games in this calendar, and you've got 2 losses. So they are going to be fighting for bowl eligibility at the end of the year. And I don't know, like, this was a tough loss, but if you're a Kentucky fan, you're like, man, that was awesome. That was, I mean, from CBS Sports, they said that was the second most rushing yards Florida has ever allowed in a single game. I mean,
Wow.
I don't know. I think it was a great win for Kentucky, but it's also kind of weird. And if you're a Florida fan, scary that Kentucky is just out physically Florida year in, year out now, it seems.
Yeah, without a doubt, because the way Kentucky beats them is got to be the part that's, it's like, this isn't a fluke. This is just another team just out physicaling you. But we were just talking about with South Carolina, like trying to find the wins on the rest of their schedule. Like, I think I saw a South Carolina fan talking about like this Florida game was a must win, already counting Missouri and A&M as losses, right? Just trying to go through and find the 6 wins. If South Carolina is talking about the Florida game being a must win, you better believe Florida fans think the South Carolina game is a must win. And South Carolina's going to be coming off a bye too. And let's not forget this team also lost to Vanderbilt, who they're a year ago, who they're going to play this week. So I think Florida's going to beat Vanderbilt, but I don't know that. But it is at home. But yeah, they still have Arkansas and LSU and Missouri and obviously Georgia and Florida State, like you said. So it's even tougher than South Carolina's schedule looking forward, because at least South Carolina's already played North Carolina and they've already played Georgia to this point.
Absolutely. You want to hit up Notre Dame and Duke, where Notre Dame gets they really probably should have lost this game. I think even Notre Dame fans would say they got away with one here to escape not like any nefarious stuff, but just how that game ended and what it looked like, especially late in that one, that Duke was going to get the dub. What did you make of Notre Dame? Because I wonder if we have the same perspective on Notre Dame coming out of this one.
I'm not sure. Like, I felt like watching Notre Dame and Ohio State, like, there's these low scoring games. You can just say, oh, this is terrible football. Or you can say, oh, this is great defense, competitive, grinded out game, and that's kind of what it felt like. These are two really good teams that have good offenses, but they also have really good defense that get stingy in the red zone. Right. But, seeing them play like this against Duke, and it's no disrespect to Duke. I guess it has to be disrespect to Duke, that this team that just went back and forth with Ohio State the week before is now going back and forth with Duke. It's kind of like, okay, well, is Duke this legit? Are they a big time team, or is Notre Dame not quite as good as we thought? And it's probably a combination of both, but I think we kind of thought Notre Dame was going to be the same team they've always been. And now they have a quarterback that can go vertical. Right. And it feels kind of like Notre Dame is still the same team they've been. Like, so Sam Hartman, that 4th and 16 play, that was a legendary play. Also I got a shout out. Sidebar. Tori is officially not a fan of Sam Hartman because she had Duke in the +6, and that cost her the pick'em this week. So Sam Hartman really not doing any favors with Tori as a sidebar. But yeah,
even after he went
to
go check on Riley Leonard, did she see that? Like the class shown by Sam Hartman?
I was trying to tell. I was like, he's at least objectively handsome. We can all agree on that.
They were the ones who started it, and we just followed along with what our wives were saying, Matt Green. We got on the train after we joined it after they started it. You know this.
And so, I'm a Georgia fan over here talking about going at Auburn as a big time win because it was a hostile environment. So I think Jordan-Hare Stadium's a little bit different than Wallace Wade Stadium. Is that Duke? I believe.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
It's a little bit different atmosphere, a little bit different stadium capacity, but Duke could easily be a better team than Auburn this year. And so Riley Leonard is a super dynamic athlete at the quarterback position. So to go on the road with, I feel like, a good Duke team, it's hard to call it a bad win by any means. You found a way to win the game, and that's the name of the game, right? And it was a clutch way that they got it done. But it felt like Duke more than anything. I felt like this game, like obviously Notre Dame found a way to win, but it felt like Florida State Clemson a week ago to me, that Duke should have won this game. They miss a 28-yard field goal and a 35-yard field goal in this one, like turned it over a couple times. Like there's some missed opportunities. I feel like Duke easily could have won this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Duke played really well. They have nothing to hang their heads about. I mean, obviously you want to come away with a win, but the tight ends for Notre Dame is a big part to me. Like Irish Illustrated had this because the Hartman to Evans, that being Mitchell Evans combination, has been huge. Mitchell Evans, that is, has 13 passes, has caught 13 passes in his 15 targets the past 2 games. He had 134 yards on 6 receptions against Duke last night. He obviously was huge last week against Ohio State. They have their identity. Like Notre Dame, they know exactly who they are. I think you're just kicking yourself more and more if you're an Irish fan this week, because you're like, we should have beat Ohio State and we would be right there atop. Like, that would be 2 great back-to-back wins at Duke, which is a top 25 team, top 15 team really to this point, and Ohio State, who's a top 5, top 7 team. So I think Notre Dame, to me,
probably be ranked 4th or 5th right now.
Yeah, they would be a CFP favorite still to this point if they were able to close the deal down the stretch there. But they're versatile offensively, and I like that. I like that they have their 2 tight end combination that just feels very Notre Dame to have 2 good tight ends that they can rely on. And Audric Estime had that great opening drive. They had that good fake punt call that went to their talented running back. What is his name? Why am I blanking on his name? I cannot remember his name. They have so many different backs. I'm blanking on who it was. But he had a great game as well. I just think Sam Hartman, he raises the level of what Notre Dame can be this year. Defensively, they've been really good, especially red zone. So this was also an Irish Illustrated that I thought was interesting, because I've talked about on this program what their stats are defensively, and they're also explosive offensively. It's just, they're very different in a multitude of ways. But defense, like, the defense is legit. Like, when they have all 11 players in the field, Matt Green, this is a defense to be reckoned with. They have a 35% touchdown rate, 7 touchdowns on 20 trips for teams that have come into the red zone against the Irish. It's one of the best in the country. They have the number 6 overall red zone defense.
Just got to keep 11 players in the field.
Just got to keep 11 players in the field. But I think Notre Dame is an elite team in a lot of ways. And I think there's so many of these times, like, you just got to get the dub. And they got away at Duke. Got a win, and they move on. So season's still alive. CFP still in play. Still, we're not even halfway point in the season yet. So big win for Notre Dame. Duke still nothing to hang their head about. Still a great team. They're missing their best tackle in this one. So that was huge for them. But I don't know. Big win for Notre Dame is the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, I think you gotta. Ultimately, it's a good win, and they gotta. Their season's coming up basically the next couple weeks, like with at Louisville and USC these next couple weeks. I think if they get past those teams, like this team, I think they have an 11-1 regular season.
But that's gonna be tough, and especially what we've seen from Louisville to this point, and slowing down that USC offense will be very tough as well. But I think they get USC at home, right? That's a home game.
Yeah, USC is a home game, so
that's big. Kind of got a lot of luck there. Ohio State and USC at home, same year. That's where you want to be if you're Notre Dame. Now it's time, Matt Green. After a big tweet from you, and I turned it into a TikTok, we do all this about signature wins, and you went on a Lane Kiffin hate diatribe on last week's show. I defended my guy Lane to this point and what Ole Miss has been, and then he goes out, and I feel like the Dumb and Dumber reference is in order for you.
I just thought it right as you said that. That's hilarious.
He goes out and totally redeems himself in the eyes of Matthew W. Green. Are you ready to come to terms with Lane Kiffin is an elite college football coach, sir?
I don't know if I'm gonna jump to that conclusion, but I will apologize to Lane Kiffin. You know that I was questioning him. I was calling Ole Miss fraudulent, and this was a big time win. I was corrected though. In another sidebar here, Tori, we heard everyone talking about signature wins, and she said, "Why do they call it a signature win?" A signature win is something that you always do. Like, it's your signature, like signature move, you know, the Diamond Dallas Page with the diamond cutter, right? Mm-hmm. This is a marquee win, you know? So it's interesting. I'm not sure why we use this term signature win, but so that's just a sidebar. So the marquee win that Lane Kiffin needed, this was huge. And I think because of the way it was done, you know, like, every Alabama game is just made to be so big, and the offense didn't show up for that Alabama game a week ago. Like, it's one thing when you're losing these games in a track meet and your offense, as a big time offensive coach, your offense is working. So to win this game where this was an absolute track meet. So this, obviously, Lane Kiffin's offense was looking good. over 700 yards of offense in this one, almost 400 yards passing, over 300 yards rushing. Like, they were absolutely destroying LSU. But I'm going to move the goalpost on Lane Kiffin here, because what I told you and what I asked you before this game was what? I said, is LSU going to finish a top 25 team? And you're like, obviously, yeah. And he didn't have a good record versus teams that finished top 25. And then I asked you, is LSU winning 10 games? You're like, I think so. And he's never beaten a team that's won 10 games. Well, now LSU has 2 losses, so they're probably not going to win 10 games. And then they still got A&M. They still got Alabama on the schedule. Are they going to finish top 25? I don't even know that. So I hate to be like, covering my own ass over here and, moving the goalpost, but it is a big time win. I'm not going to take that away from Lane Kiffin, but there is a chance that those numbers are still the same after this year.
Well, fear not, Bayou Bengal fans, because I saw this from a Baton Rouge LSU reporter where Pete Jenkins, I think, is back with the LSU Tigers after they gave up more than 700 yards in this game against Ole Miss, back to its football staff. So he retired as the LSU defensive line coach in 2017. So maybe that's all they're missing. Let's bring Ed Orgeron back to the defense and get that magic.
Interim coach extraordinaire.
I mean, the biggest thing to me, Jaden Daniels has a death wish. Like, he took another crazy shot in this one where I don't know what else to like. It's just, I can't imagine being an LSU fan and watching him take these shots over and over again, especially with his frame. It's amazing that the guy is, he's a warrior, and he's also elite. Like, he had another great game. 91.2, he outplayed Jackson Dart in this one. And it's going to be forgotten that he was on the losing side of this, but he's been excellent all year long, and it's been a CFP type offense for LSU. Like, their offense is great and clicking all across the board. The defense has real problems, and I don't know what you do. You can save it this year because now you're out of the playoff. Like you said, you still got a lot of big games left in the calendar. I think they're in a weird spot because I think Brian Kelly is still a great coach. I still think LSU is moving in the right direction. They are going to continue to get better, get that defense right. The offense is right. I wonder where the expectations are in Baton Rouge, because now you're out of the playoff early in this 2023 season, and it's year 2, and we talk about the year 2 bump all the time, but this is going to be one of those where it seems like they're going to lose more games than they lost a year ago. They're not going to make the SEC title game. I just wonder what the temperature is in one of the hardest and most difficult, but also the most rewarding jobs in the sport. I'm very curious to see how the rest of the season plays out for LSU, because they got to get right, and they got to get that defense right, because they still have some gigantic games remaining on the calendar to avoid going to 8-4 or something, because I think that does not sell nearly as well going into next year.
Yeah, for sure. And if you'd have told me that Jaden Daniels is what was he, 27 of 36, over 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks, had almost 100 yards rushing too, like, LSU loses that game, like, for their defense to get torched like that, like, I think that is a pretty alarming sign. And I think you have to look at LSU. Like, I think there's a chance LSU is still a better team than Ole Miss, but they got them on the road in a hostile environment. But, the Ole Miss game wasn't supposed to be one of the toss-up games, right? Preseason, Alabama and A&M and Florida State, like, those are supposed to be the toss-up games. So if you're losing to Ole Miss, like, barely beating Arkansas, like, there's some other teams in this division that are probably going to beat you. So I'm kind of curious to how many losses this team's really going to have this year.
I love the trio of Harris, Judkins, and Dart, though. Those three, they've got some weapons this year. Are you ready to say Ole Miss can win the West, Matt Green?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm there. I think I think the fact that Alabama's already got that win over them, I think that's not. I don't see Alabama losing 2 more times, right? And Alabama's got to lose twice for Ole Miss to get back in the SEC championship. So I mean, it's possible. Alabama's not the juggernaut that they have been in past years, but I think there's still a lot of winnable games on their schedule. So I think A&M is probably in as good a position as anybody, but they got Alabama this week, so that'll be decided. I think the SEC West could potentially be decided next week.
It's funny you say that. That's what I wrote down. I'm like, I don't know if people know this or not, but A&M Alabama next week is gigantic, and that could end up deciding who is moving on to Atlanta to face potentially the Dogs in a few months here. But that's a big one going to next week, and then you have
we already given Georgia the East.
Hold on, folks. We're operating on the assumption until it happens. The team that hasn't lost a regular season game in over 2 years. Yeah, I might go ahead and lean that way. So until it happens, I'm not saying the Vols or the Missouri Tigers can't come around and win this thing from the Dogs, but until I see it, I'm gonna operate.
The Wildcat fans on listening right now are getting real upset. They got a big time prime time game with Georgia next week. A battle of undefeateds in the SEC East.
And that's a night game, you said too, right?
It is.
Okay.
Between the hedges. Maybe they'll rock black jerseys. Who knows? Everyone else does it.
No, poor Georgia fans. They don't get everything they want.
They just want some black jerseys. The recruits love them. Their recruits rocking red pants and white helmets. The recruits are doing crazy things. We just want to wear the black jerseys.
Well,
without the dog collars. I have to specify without the dog collar.
Yeah, the dog collars. Very cringe. Too cartoony. No. You don't want to be that.
I mean, when you're watching on TV, you don't really notice it, but I don't like knowing that it's a dog collar.
Yeah, no, I didn't enjoy those. I actually think those were worse than what they wore against Boise State in the Dome many years ago. I think the dog collar was actually cringier than what they wore in the Dome.
Only because, like I said, it wasn't as noticeable when you're watching. I wouldn't say it was as bad, but that silver helmet with the red stripe and the red on the face, that was just, yeah, you're right. They called them the Power Ranger uniforms. Everyone called them that, but the uniforms themselves weren't that bad if they would just rock like the regular helmet or something with them. But yeah, the helmet was just awful.
The honeycomb era for Georgia Tech was also very silly because, again, Yellow Jackets don't create honey. Like, that was a whole crazy thing, but also they just didn't look good.
Oh my God, that didn't even occur to me. Those were supposed to be for SCAD. I think SCAD is the bees.
Was that really what they were supposed to be for?
No, I just made that up.
Okay.
That
is like they were doing a solid to SCAD. Okay. Well, speaking of Tech, here's something that will make you feel better. Georgia Tech lost a bye game at home where they wore the black. So this was just an all-around worst-case scenario weekend for Georgia Tech. They have this awesome video they post on Twitter this week, hyping up their black and gold uniforms they wore many years ago that were great. Like, they looked really good.
Except for their navy and gold. Why are they wearing black? I saw the Instagram post. I thought it was Purdue or Vanderbilt rocking these uniforms.
I think they've done both, and they've gone back and forth over the years between the navy and the black. I think it's fine. What I'm also saying, they have bigger issues, Matt Green, which is they were also glow-in-the-dark uniforms they wore for an afternoon game, which, all right, sure, whatever you got to do. But also,
right?
Yeah, they were glow-in-the-dark. And then you wear those in the afternoon, and then you end up losing a bye game to Bowling Green, not even a good Group of 5 team, Matt Green. You have all this goodwill. Haynes King is dealing. The offense is rolling. Buster Faulkner's got that thing cooking on the flats. Brent Key getting all kinds of great vibes, and they're soaring up recruiting rankings. I think they're somewhere around the 25th spot in 247.
You beat Wake Forest on the road.
You beat Wake Forest on the road, and then you go and get thrashed at home to Bowling Green. Matt, what is there to say about Georgia Tech and what happened on Saturday for you?
Yeah, there's not much you can say. Obviously, Georgia Tech's a rebuild. It wasn't Brent Key wasn't going to fix this thing in year one, but it felt like they were starting to have a pulse, at least, like that Louisville game. Like they're going back and forth. It was a close game. Arguably should have won the game. Ole Miss, they were keeping that one close, like into the fourth quarter, but No, actually getting a road victory, like there were some signs, but no, losing to Bowling Green. I don't know. Is it a trap game with Miami coming up next week? I don't know, but it's a terrible sign.
Goodness gracious.
Is Miami rocking their glow in the darks versus Tech? I hope they have a night game. I saw they have some kind of, what do they call them? Like Miami Vice or something, some sort of name like that. I'm not sure, but they have some Miami Nights, maybe something like that. But yeah, they have some sort of glow in the dark thing going on too.
Okay. I mean, maybe that's what happens here, but goodness gracious. Poor Yellow Jacket fans. Matt Green, before we hit on Oregon State and another dub for me in the pick'em this week, I wanted to, let's hit another one that
we'll have to get to the pick'em results as well.
We're saving that for the end because I know the ground, unfortunately, for one co-host continues to stray away based on another weekend of dubs for Chase.
Might not be as great as you think over there, but we'll wait till that's the end.
What I'm looking at here, I see a lot of dubs. So I don't know what you're looking at here, sir, because I seem to recall you even picking, I think, South Carolina outright last week on the show.
No.
Did you not?
I picked South Carolina just to cover.
Okay, that was it, just to cover. Okay. Still dubious on that front, but I think we have to talk about the Sam Pittman era at Arkansas.
Ooh.
They lose a rough one against the Texas A&M Aggies in Jerry World. They've lost this game a lot. I didn't realize how lopsided this rivalry really is. They recruit the same area. Obviously, a big rivalry for the Hogs and A&M and the Aggies. But backup quarterback KJ Jefferson came into the year preseason. A lot of people like KJ Jefferson. Obviously, Kendall Briles moves on to TCU. Enter Dan Enos, who's coached at a lot of different stops at this point as OC. And the offense is just a shell of what we've seen the first couple of years in the Sam Pittman era. And, I mean, A&M gave up 2 yards total rushing to Arkansas in the second half. 3 straight losses now for Arkansas. They got dominated up front by Texas A&M on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Texas A&M outgained Arkansas 414 to 174. Arkansas has now lost 11 of the last 12 Southwest Classics here, Matt Green. This is year 3 for Sam Pittman. It feels like
This is year 4.
I mean, year 4, yeah. They're going the wrong direction. And I just wonder, from your perspective, are we getting closer to hot seat talk for Sam Pittman? Are Arkansas now in real jeopardy of maybe even missing a bowl game this year? Is the program going the wrong way? Like, what should expectations be for Arkansas fans going forward? Or where are you at with this particular loss, what you saw, and the direction of Sam Pittman's program?
I will say this is kind of the formula I thought we were going to see from this game, and because Arkansas just hasn't been able to run the ball this year, and they've been one of the better running teams in the SEC 2 years in a row. And Rocket Sanders is back for this one, and who knows if he's 100%, but A&M just shut down this running game. And if Arkansas is not running, like they're not going to beat you. And so I don't know. I love Sam Pittman. I think everyone loves Sam Pittman. He actually looks at Arkansas as like a destination job. It's like, it feels like Arkansas is like a more relevant program right now than they were 5-10 years ago, or at least after Bobby Petrino left and Bielema had some bowl game, some 7-8 win teams maybe, but it just felt like they were an irrelevant program. It feels like right now Arkansas is at least competing, even if they are coming out on the losing side lots of times. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I think the BYU loss is the one that's really stinging right now, because you weren't supposed to beat A&M or LSU coming to this season. So LSU was definitely closer than people thought. And A&M, they kind of dominated this game, but Arkansas goes into the season and loses to, say, Alabama, A&M, and LSU and beats everyone else. Like, that's best case scenario, basically. So the BYU loss definitely derails that. And I don't know how many more losses are on this schedule. Like they have, I think Florida, right? Are they at home or on the road versus Florida? At Florida, like that's going to be tough, but obviously at Ole Miss, at Alabama.
You ready? I got it in front of me now.
Okay, go for it.
They got Ole Miss next week.
On the road, right? Yeah, okay.
Then they go to Alabama the following week on the road. Mississippi State at home, at Florida, Auburn at home, FIU at home, and then Mizzou to close the year. That
Mississippi State is a must win if there's ever been one. I mean, there's no reason they can't beat Auburn, FIU, and Missouri, obviously, to close the season. I mean, at home, like, you know, that's probably if they're gonna do it. So there could be 4 wins on here. And there's no reason to think they're not necessarily a better team than Florida. They could easily be a better team, but going on the road in the SEC is just a hard thing to do. So I don't know. It's hard to find many wins on the schedule, but I tend to think they still go bowling. And I think as long as you're going bowling, like obviously that's not the standard for Sam Pittman, but it's like it could be worse. And I think, I don't know. It depends on how they're losing some of these games as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen better. Like, Bobby Petrino obviously got them to the highs of highs. Houston Nutt got them to number 1 in the country at one point. Like, they have been.
When were they number 1 in the country? Under Houston Nutt?
Tennessee, the Tennessee game in the late 90s. They were number 1, I think, going into that game.
That's not Houston Nutt. He wasn't there in the 90s, was he?
Yeah, hold on.
Houston Nutt he was at Ole Miss. Was he at Ole Miss before Arkansas? I thought he was at Ole Miss. I'm throwing a lot at you right now.
Yeah, hold on. Because it was the fumble game by Arkansas in Neyland.
98.
Okay, they were number 10 that game. Right? Sorry, they were number 10. They were 8-1 coming into that game.
You're talking about like Tennessee's national championship season, right?
Yes.
Like 1998.
Yeah, I thought they were right there.
Was that Stoner that fumbled there at the end?
Yeah.
And then where Houston Nutt was there from.
So who would that have been? Was that not Houston Nutt? I thought it was Houston Nutt.
98. 98 was his first year there.
Yeah, they came in from Boise, right?
98 to 2007. So then he would have had to go to Ole Miss after Arkansas. Okay. And then, he played for 2 SEC championships against, 02 and 06?
No, 98.
07. No, 98 wasn't. That was I think that was Mississippi State's one SEC championship.
Oh, they tied,
actually.
And because I guess it had to be that because then Mississippi State lost to Tennessee, and that's right.
But Mark Richt's first SEC championship was over Arkansas, and then the Tebow, one of the Tebow years, Tebow McFadden. So that'd have been 06.
I mean, it's one of those interesting things. Can Arkansas do better?
I guess that would have been Chris Leak's starting year, actually.
Yeah, I think Sam Pittman, like you saw the worst, like Chad Morris hire was a disaster and set them back significantly. But I mean, I think Arkansas, good recruiting area. You can recruit Texas really well. There is a lot of talent. You're in the SEC. The program as a whole, like the athletic department at Arkansas is actually pretty elite. The baseball program's elite. The basketball program with Eric Musselman's been elite since that hire came in. So I'm curious to see how they approach Sam Pittman in this offseason if they go 5-7 and they finish the year with a loss to Mizzou at home, which Mizzou looks good.
I'm not necessarily, that's the thing. I guess I'm not ready to call Missouri a top 25 team right now. Like, sure,
hold on, they're a top 25 team. They're good.
Yeah, sure. They're fine. They're looking good. They beat Vanderbilt this past week. Like, let's not go too nuts or anything. So like this Arkansas team could easily go 7-5, 8-5 if they win a bowl game or something. And if you're winning 7-8 games at Arkansas, like, I don't think that's enough to be losing your job.
Okay, we'll see. I just don't know. I don't know what the temperature is on that regard. And then
if they miss a bowl game next year, could be some legitimate hot seat talk. Even if I don't know, it feels like they just like him. So I don't even know if it's just how we feel from the outside or how they really feel in Arkansas.
Top 10 teams, Matt Green. You have a take on this among the top 10, the whether or not there are any dominant top 10 teams to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think my top 10 hasn't really changed a whole lot in the last couple weeks. And I think you saw the AP poll come out this week, and Georgia's down to, I want to say, about 35 first place votes.
Mm.
Texas and Michigan both getting double digit first place votes. And I just want to, maybe it's to talk Georgia fans off the ledge about just not beating everybody 65-7. Because there's right now through 5 weeks, like, who is the best team in college football? Like, I tend to side with a team that just won back-to-back national championships, and it is 5-0, even if they are 0-5 against the spread. But it's like, you look at Florida State, like we was kind of talking earlier, like, barely beat Boston College, barely beat Clemson. Like, the LSU win is better than anyone Georgia's beaten to this point. If you want to rank their resume over, like, that's fine. Michigan to this point basically has no good wins. Like, at Nebraska, sure, they dominated, but there's, we still don't know about Michigan, so it's hard to overly overreact to them. You've seen at least Texas and Ohio State have the big road wins over top 10-ish teams, even if we're kind of not sure how to feel about Alabama or Notre Dame. But you're also seeing like Washington getting first place votes, and this team just beat Arizona by 7 points on the road. Like, Oregon had a game, they beat Texas Tech. What was it, by 6 or by 8 on the road? So you're seeing teams. There's the Georgia Bulldogs are not immortal. There's no just super dominant team out there that, if you're not winning by 40, you have no chance running with the big boys this year. Like, I just don't think that's the case. So I want all fans, as well as mainly Georgia fans, but I want all fans to just enjoy each Saturday, and just you don't have to win the national championship on September 30th or whatever day Saturday was. On October 7th, you don't have to win the national championship. On October 7th, you got to beat Alabama, or you got to beat Texas A&M, and then you go to October 14th. It's like it's 1 week at a time. So we don't have to constantly be measuring everybody among who the elites are. It's like, just take care of business, and hopefully your team at the end of the season is capable of winning a national championship. Because right now, there's a lot of teams that are just that have some flaws, and I don't think there's one team you can, like, is there a team you can point to right now that you're like, they have not shown a flaw through 5 weeks?
I like it.
Or who closest fits that in your mind?
Wait, repeat that question.
Just who's a flawless team through the first 5 weeks of the season?
I think in terms of flawless,
or whose resume is the most flawless?
Michigan, probably.
But it's against nobody's, right? I would say at least Penn State's looks like they have a ranked win, right? Whatever you think about Iowa, like, they're taking care of business, covering every week, right? Like, Texas,
I guess it's just because
Texas' schedule is, they've kind of sleptwalked through some of their cupcake games. Obviously, they beat Alabama on the road, and that's the ultimate flex that for anybody to have.
I think it's, for me, either Texas or Michigan. I mean, Texas curb stomped Kansas this week, and Jonathan Brooks, 21 carries, 218 yards, 2 TDs. Like, him and Baxter now, a great 1-2 punch. Ewers had a huge day. I mean, no Jalen Daniels. Bean was awful. There was a great fumble into a touchdown that I've never seen in this game from Kansas, but that was really the only highlight for the
But
Jayhawks.
if you look at Texas, and that's like 3 weeks in a row that they've played someone's backup quarterback. And, like, Jalen Milroe, like, maybe the worst Alabama quarterback of the Nick Saban era, like, with all due respect to Jalen Milroe. Like, so they've also had some, not to who did they ain't played nobody, Paul, like, not to go there, but it's like there's a lot of teams that still have a lot left to prove.
I just think Michigan right now, my gut tells me, is the best team in the country. Like, that's where my gut is. I think they're the most complete and can win in the most amount of ways. I mean, Nebraska led the Big Ten in rushing before this week, and they only were able to run 106 yards on Michigan. McCarthy only had to throw 16 times. Like, you just look at it. I just think Michigan doesn't have to do much. They just kind of remind me of the last 2 Georgia teams, where they don't have to do a whole lot to beat you. Like, they just know they're going to walk in. They just take care of business. They're well coached all across the board. For me, I just look at the Wolverines right now. I think they're the most complete team in the most important areas all across the board. Now, that doesn't mean they'll win the championship, but I think my gut tells me that Michigan is the most complete team to this point in the year.
And that's definitely possible. I just like, for all the talk about Georgia's schedule, like this Michigan schedule, I feel like it's even worse. Like, I don't know where the strength of schedule stuff like ranks. Well, I should say for the first 9 games, it's without a doubt worse. They do have 2 top 5 teams in the final 3 games. And so that's definitely more difficult than anything Georgia's got on their schedule, especially at Penn State. But through the first 9 games, like they're not even playing anyone like with a pulse. Like they might be the best team in college football, but it's like we won't find out until like mid to late November, basically.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Matt Green, a couple other things we can run through. Colorado comes on late to give USC a little bit of a scare. We talked about Texas and Michigan taking care of business. Louisville goes on the road and wins at NC State, a sneaky tough place to win on a Friday night. So big win for the Cards there. Oregon State takes down Utah, who finally got caught with some bad offenses without Cam Rising. Good game from Silas Bolden, who had his first 100-yard game. He had 6 catches for 100 yards. He played really well. So big win for the Beavs. But yeah, overall, a very fun college football weekend. But to wrap things up, where do things stand right now, Matt Green, based on our picks from last week? Good sir.
Yes, sir. To close it out, so we both went 9-2 overall. Win-loss this past week. So you still got 1 game lead on me overall. 41-14 on the season to my 40-15. But I gained a game on you against the spread this week, sir. 7-4 I was against the spread. You were 6-5. So a lot of time left. You are now on the season 33-21-1 against the spread to my 32-22-1. So you're trailing both of them or you're leading both of them by just 1 game. And Zeus with NC State, they didn't win the game, but they did cover the spread, so we're counting it for Zeus. That's 6-1 on the season. He's giving you winners against the spread. That's the most important thing.
There you go. Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to you very soon.